Hi, good morning, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon in our most recent webinar brought to you by Campanella Law Office. And just to give you a bit of an introduction to myself, my name is Gina Campanella. I am the principal attorney of Campanella Law Office. Our office is located in Wyckoff, New Jersey and Neptune, New Jersey, but we do practice New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Vermont, the District of Columbia, and on the federal level. Our practice focuses on business law with a sub-focus on healthcare businesses, as well as residential and commercial real estate. Our firm not only provides you with the services of myself, your principal attorney, but we also have a wonderful panel of counsel attorneys who practice in many different disciplines, as well as a panel of strategic partners. Our strategic partners are our non-attorney partners who we have had many clients work with. Our firm, and particularly I have vetted and very wholeheartedly recommend to our clients for additional services that they may require. And the strategic partner that we have with us today is Simon's Agency. And Simon's Agency focuses on a modern approach to debt recovery. And from Simon's Agency, we have with us Andrew Politi, who brings over 35 years of experience working within the credit and collection industries to the table. Andrew spent 10 years in the banking industry, where he handled the credit and collections departments, as well as the utilization of third-party collections, working with collections agencies and collections attorneys. Andrew spent the last 25 years working with national collection agencies as a sales executive and a trainer. He's given numerous talks in the healthcare arena over that time, and that's actually how I first met Andrew. Is he and I were at a conference in common, and I listened to one of his presentations, and I felt that he really had a unique and incredibly sensitive and personable approach to collections and debt recovery that I wanted to bring to my clients. So Andrew has given a numerous number of those talks in the healthcare arena on such topics as accounts receivable management, hiring the right accounts receivable agencies, when you need to utilize that third-party influence, and when you should be making payment arrangements, things of that nature. I wanted to bring Andrew before all of you today to speak with you because I know that many of my clients are in a position now with the COVID-19 recovery where they may need to re-examine utilizing a collections agency where they may have been financially unable to do so before, or not needed to do so before, let's phrase it that way. So I did think this was a great time to reintroduce you all to Andrew and Simon's Agency, and I will let Andrew have the floor.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it. So I want to thank Gina from Campanella Law Offices for having me here today. I want to thank all of you for attending and make this as fun as possible and informative if I can. And hopefully I'll leave you with a few things you can take back to your office, and hopefully you can use some of the techniques and strategies that I can offer today and be successful for you. Again, I want to thank her for the introduction, and again, with the COVID situation going on out there, I just want to let everybody be aware that your agencies that you are using, hopefully that they all working remotely and did so easily. We were able to do so. And in the industry that a lot of them have not lost a beat as far as their collections is concerned. So COVID hasn't changed anything as far as the success. The only thing it's done is, I think, allowed everybody now to realize how successful and how easy it is to work remotely. With that being said, I want to get into our presentation as we speak. And I want to get into the agenda today. What I'm going to talk about today is basically three things, and they're at the bottom. I'm going to talk about a collection strategy, what I call strategy 101, that all offices should be utilizing some sort of strategy. I'm going to be talking about the art of negotiating payments, and at the very end, how to choose the right agency for you. And I think that's real important. And at the end, we're going to do a questions and answers. If you have a pressing question, I'm sure there's a chat box and Gina can get it over to me if something can't wait, and I will try to answer it for you. But I always like to leave them all to the end. This way we can go through it, and I might be answering your question somewhere during the presentation. So with
Yes,
that
Andrew,
being,
forgive the interruption, Andrew. I did
no,
forget to mention at the top, there is a chat box and a question box where all attendees can feel free to type in their questions throughout the presentation, and I will bring those to you at the end of the presentation.
thank you, Gina, I appreciate it. Okay, so let's move along. Okay, collection strategy 101, and the reason ours is 101 is because I do have a 201 for my next one that I'm going to do, and hopefully Gina will have me back. But I do various talks, as Gina mentioned, for a lot of the healthcare industry through HFMA, through MGMA national and local, and we do it on various topics. So we're going to get into the collection strategy. And at the bottom, you're going to see it says, what does your AR mean to you? We're going to talk about information and permissions that you need when doing your intake forms. And we're going to talk about a 90-day collection cycle, which is, can't take all the credit for, something that we use, but it was based on statistics by the American Collectors Association. Okay, so an account receivable, what is it? Account receivable is an asset, okay? And anytime somebody goes without paying, they create a receivable, and receivables are assets. Now, an asset is owned by you, the company. You can do what you want with that asset. You can place it for collections. You can turn it over to an attorney. You can write it off. You can do nothing. Okay, it is an asset owned by you on the balance sheet. Okay, all receivables are assets on the balance sheet. And what it does is that you know that it depreciates. Okay, and what you want to look at is that asset that you have, that receivable. If somebody owes you $1,000 today and you're not collecting it, and you may collect it a year from now, or if it is collectible, by the time you get around to it, by the time you give it to somebody and they collect it, what is it worth then? I always call it present value versus future value, okay? So is the money more valuable today than it is to you a year from now? Obviously, it's going to be worth more to you today. So that's another thing to look about when you're looking at your assets and what you're going to do with them. And we look at your assets are less than 90 days. Okay, because after 90 days, we start talking about the collection cycle, how much value that they lose after 90 days that it hasn't been collected. Okay, so let's talk first about the patient information and some of the things that you're going to be getting. You already are getting, but I'm going to be talking a little bit more at the bottom where you see permissions. We all know you guys all get the full name of the person, their mailing address, date of birth you asked for, and I know you asked for social security numbers. Now, I know you don't always get that, and you might get a little pushback from them that always says, you know, well, what do you need that for? And let's be honest, technically, a doctor does not need your social security number to cure you, obviously, but it is a unique identifier. Okay, today on the new births that are today in the hospital, you can't leave the hospital without a social security number. That is your identifier. And let's face it, there's probably about 4 John Does that live in the same household, and you want to make sure you're talking and always dealing with the right one. So when somebody always says that to me, my standard response is to the practices that I consult with, I always tell them, give it, when they miss out information, like they forget their date of birth or their name or something, their address, their place of employment, you take a yellow highlighter and you go through the list and you tell them that you missed a few things, could you please fill these out? If they say, well, what do you need that information for? You simply tell them, well, after 35 years of being in business, we find this is the only way to give you 100% service. Now, normally they're not going to say, well, only give me 35%. You know, they're usually going to say, okay, and they'll come back and they'll fill out a few more of the yellow highlighters that you put through there. They may not fill out at all, but at least you'll get more information than you had before. And I will say this, accounts that end up in collections usually have the sketchiest patient information sheets. It's the patients that leave the least amount of information on those. So I want to talk a little bit about permissions because I did highlight email addresses on here, and I want to talk about some of the permissions that you're going to need. And I want to talk about this, okay? These are some of the laws and some of the things that are on here, and there's some explanations about what you can do and what you can't do, okay? But I am not an attorney, as Gina will attest to. I leave that work to her. But I will tell you this, that today with the privacy laws, between HIPAA and just regular privacy, when you're dealing with cell phones, who are completely different than landlines because of spoofing and spam and hacking, everything else that goes on, there needs to be permissions. okay, especially with emails and if you want to be contacted by text or by your cell phone. So somewhere on your form, even for you as the client, okay, as the provider, to get permission to talk to somebody, somewhere on your form, you're going to need some kind of language that says by filling that out or providing this information, you're giving us permission to contact you. Now, the only thing that I would say to add to that is to say something like, by providing this information, you give us and or our agents permission to contact you. And I say that because if you decide to use an attorney and or a collection agency to help in collections, they're going to need that information. Now, good collection agencies, what they will do is on some of their notices, or actually on the very first notice, they will provide a box that says, if you provide your cell phone number and or your email to be contacted, please check this box. And they can always opt out and you give an opt out. But the statistics that we've come up with is less than 1% of everybody who provides it ever opts out of it. So it is good to have on there. And again, I am not an attorney. Please see a professional like Gina for the exact wording that should be on your forms when it comes to exactly how you should say that. I just ask that you put in there and us or our agents. Always say that because in case you use somebody else, your agent now has permission to use their email and or their cell phone for contacting them. So let's move along. Okay, how long should somebody wait to put somebody in collections? Okay, there is no hard and fast rule. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to the 90-day collection cycle that we came up with, but there are exceptions to that rule, and it's not hard and fast. And again, and I want to make the statement, I am not here to change management philosophy for anybody's practice or anybody's organization. These are just suggestions that we're providing to you that we've come up with over the years. Okay, but these are not hard and fast. There are exceptions. And again, if your management rule has something in place, I'm not here to change that. Okay, so we're going to talk about when you should send somebody to collections. Okay, it could be, it could be day 1, it could be day 20, it could be day 150. It doesn't really matter if that's a management rule. Okay, I want to move on. What is the 90-day collection cycle? Okay, when you're dealing with a 90-day collection cycle, all right, that means that insurance, and I'm going to bring it up for you just so you know, okay, day 1 insurance pays, okay? And this is for the instance, if insurance doesn't pay, then day 1 would be the date of service. If there's no insurance, and it's strictly private pay. So on day 1, insurance pays. Now I'm going to make the assumption that everybody bills every 30 days. If you could do it faster and do 15 days, then this whole 90-day collection cycle would literally be 45 days. But for the sake of argument, a lot of you have large practices and you have big businesses, and it's too hard to bill more than 30 days. So we're going to make the assumption you bill every 30 days. So insurance pays, great, $1,000 bill, insurance pay 200, here's $800 left over. Okay, so you send 30 days after that happens, you send the first bill to the patient, and it is a regular bill and sent out, and good news, insurance paid, here's your balance that you owe. And first bill goes to the patient. Now you wait 30 days till you bill again, because either the patient pays you, in this case, this person won't go any further, or the person doesn't pay you, okay? And the second bill goes out. Now you notice I wrote on there past due, and I did put that in red. And the reason why it's past due is because you sent the first bill out, they didn't pay it. And 30 days is sufficient time that if you have to send a second bill out, it is past due, okay? Now, why do I put red on there? Well, it's not something that I came up with. Organizations and consultants, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on to figure out the best color to use that gets people's attention. And red was the color that was of choice to use because it stands out. And we always ask you that for your billing software or your billing company, if they could choose a font that's a lot bigger than your regular font on your bill for the words past due, put it on there because you want it to stand out. And if it can get dead center of the bill, that would be great too. All right, so we all agree that they didn't pay the first bill, so the second bill goes out as a past due bill. So now you wait another 30 days. They either paid or they didn't. If they didn't pay, okay, now what do you send? You send the final notice bill, okay? And why is this a final notice bill? Well, let's look at the philosophy going through here. Insurance paid, there became private pay, and there's a portion that's the patient owes. You send the bill out. They didn't pay it, so you send a past due bill out because they didn't pay the first one. They didn't pay the past due bill out. You really don't have any choice left but a final notice, okay? And the reason why it's a final notice is if you send any more bills out or any more notices, in so many words, they know that they got you and they know that you're going to continue to send out notices. So there has to be some finality to your billing cycle, okay? Now, what's going to happen is you're not going to collect. And I'm being to be quite honest with you. For the person that has no desire to pay you and is looking to get away with this and skip out on the bill, just because it says final notice doesn't mean they're going to pay. So it's not meant for that. What this is basically meant for is the people that are going to pay you, that they're on their heels financially, all right, and they're trying to get their bills paid. So let's take a scenario. Dr. Jones sends a regular bill out, okay, and Dr. Smith sends a final bill out. Now the person's on their heels. They only have X number of dollars to pay somebody. They have to pay, they have an extra $100. They got to pay one of these two bills. Which one are they going to pay? Dr. Jones's regular bill out or Dr. Smith's final notice? The final notice. Why? Because it's final. They don't want to go any further. And they know that Dr. Jones they still have a little bit of time because he didn't send out the past due or the final notice yet. So you're going after people that want to pay you, but are on their heels financially, and they're looking to do something, okay? And they want to know who to pay. So this is one of the good ways of getting them to pay, okay? And it also shows you have continuity to your bills. You're just not blindly sending out notices. And I've had practices that I've consulted for that just constantly send out bills and letters and reminders, and they're going nowhere. And this is 12 months or more of these notices going out. And I will tell you this, the average studies today to get a bill out the door or any piece of paper out the door with mailing, postage, computer time, employee time, everything else involved, I'll give you a range. It costs anywhere between $7 and $12 to get a piece of paper out the door today. So do you really want to bill anybody more than 3 times? An average of $30, all right, to try and collect your money that they should have paid for in the beginning. So now, at anywhere during this sequence here, do you have to continue sending these notices out? No, and I would tell you not to waste the $10 in what it costs to get a bill out. If you send your first bill out and the patient calls you and literally tells you, I have no desire, I'm not paying this bill, I didn't like the doctor, blah, 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 I'm not paying it, and hangs up on you, I would not send him a past due and then keep him in there and send a final notice. He's telling you up front, he has no desire to pay the bill, okay? And you can take it from that point, avoid the 90-day collection cycle, and now send them into collections or whatever your firm's policy is to do at that point, okay? And turn them over for collections at that point, whether it be an agency, an attorney, or whatever the case may be. He's telling you up front, and my opinion is don't harass him. And I'm sure from Gina can tell you more about harassment laws, that if they told you they're not going to pay the bill and you continue to harass them, you could run into a little bit of a problem. So at least they're telling you what to do at the next step. They're guiding you on what to do with your next step. And all patients do, by the way. They tell us what we're going to do by their actions. By inactivity and no communication, we go through the 90-day collection cycle. By them calling us and telling us where they stand and how they feel, tells us where we're going to start next. If they tell us they have a problem, okay, and they need to work with you, you'll work with them. I'm sure you will, okay? And if they call you to tell you they're not going to pay with it, you know what to do at that point. And if you don't hear from them at all, okay, unfortunately, the bill has to go through the whole sequence all the way up to the final notice. Now, if you give them something like, you have 10 days before it goes to collections, okay, and a final notice. And again, refer to your attorney, okay, for language, okay? And I will preface this by saying that don't ever say you're going to do something and not do it. It's called a threat, okay? And I'm sure you can, when this is over, you can run this by Gina, okay? And I've had to go to court for a client over this that said they were going to do something, they never did it, and they were actually sued over it because they determined it was a threat. So you want to use words like, you have 10 days, final notice, you have 10 days to pay this bill, or you will be subject to further collection activity. That doesn't mean you're doing anything. It says you're subject to it. And you want to use language like that, so check with your attorney. So let's move on from the 90-day collection cycle. And again, right here, it's day 100. If you give them 10 days to pay the bill, you now have had the account for 100 days. I always say it's probably going to take you another 30 days to decide what you're going to do. And in busy practices, you're going to say, okay, we've had this account, it went through our cycle here. What do we want to do with it? It's either too small, we don't want to send it out under management. They may not send anything under $50. Maybe too large, you want to send it directly to an attorney. You got 30 days to decide what you're going to want to do with the bill. And it's not really out there that long. And this whole 90-day collection cycle came up to the American Collectors Association did some studies over the years, and they've concluded that 92% of the American population pays their bills or makes arrangements to pay their bills in the first 90 days. So what we've determined is that if you don't get paid in the first 90 days, you're no longer competing in the marketplace for their money. Okay, and that's just a statistic. That's how we come up with the 90-day collection cycle. Okay. Now we talked about, I said one of the things we're talking about is the law of diminishing returns. And what is the law of diminishing returns? Okay. This talks about, time is never on your side when you're dealing with delinquency. And I always say the best time to collect your money is when the patient is the happiest. And when is the patient the happiest? When they're in your office and you helped them or cured them and they felt better. And they will tell people when they're there and you've helped them and you took away their pain, you were the greatest doctor that they ever met in their life. And they love to practice. But did you ever notice that same patient that for some reason slipped through the cracks or whatever, it's gone 6 months, you haven't been paid, that suddenly the patient has a lot of excuses and complaints, a lot of complaints. We call it complaints increase with time. Day one, you were the greatest doctor. 6 months down the road, 180 days, all of a sudden they're going to say things like, oh, I didn't feel any better. I had to go see another doctor. I thought it was going to last longer, and nothing but complaints. And again, complaints will increase with time. The longer you let something go, the less incentive there is to pay. Now you're in the service industry. So let me equate this to something. It's the same almost, let's say, and I'll use the thing of a landscaper who cuts your grass. Okay. Once he cuts the grass and forgets to bill you or whatever, you get a bill for 3 months later when the season's over. What is your incentive to pay it? I mean, good people pay it because you hired them for the service, but there is no incentive anymore. You can't put back the grass. There's nothing you can do. It's not a utility. It's not like we have the power shut off. You don't pay your bill, electric, gas, or phone. Somebody just throws a switch. They really just sit by and they don't have to do much, because if you don't pay it, they can just put a company policy after so many days for non-payment. We're going to throw a switch and you're going to get turned off. Okay. Number one bill paid out there. Does anybody know what it is? The mortgage. Correct. Absolutely. Do you know what the second bill paid is? And it's now going back and forth between second and third. Used to be your car payment. And depending on where you live in the United States, and other than a big city like New York or Philly or Chicago, when cars are not that important because of mass transit, that second and or third most important bill is the cable bill to people. Believe it or not, third most bill paid in most instances are the cable bill. And if you don't pay it, what do? They shut you off. Okay. So you do not have the power of that. Okay. Being in the service industry. So the ideal time to get your money is when the patient is the happiest. It's the time to really get on this and have all your ducks in a row and do everything properly. Okay. To get paid, because you're going to hear, I guarantee it, complaints the longer time goes on. Okay. We're going to talk now, probably the part I like the best about the seminar is negotiating payments. And I'm going to share with you, the style that a lot of agencies use, or I should say that we use, and I'm going to share with you. And I'm going to give you something you can take away with you today to bring back to your office for your people that talk to patients on just saying things a little differently than you used to about how to collect payments versus what you're doing now. Okay. And before I do that, I like to go over the rules of engagement before you talk to a patient. And I always say, before you dial the phone and get on the phone with the patient, make sure you have your 3 W's: who, when, and why. One is, who are you speaking with about the debt? Know who you're speaking with, do your verifications, okay? Also, know who you can't speak to. Every state is different, okay? Know the laws of the state that you're in, okay? New Jersey happens to be one of the states that husband and wife are equally responsible 100% for each other's medical debts. They can have their own credit in their own name as far as credit cards. And if the husband or wife doesn't sign off on it, it's not their debt. But medical, each are 100% responsible. So you could talk to either one. If you're the guardian or the guarantor and you're listed that way, yes, you can speak about your child. If your child is over 18, you cannot speak to them unless your child gives them permission. Okay, know when you can speak to people. Now, you have a little more leeway than third party. Attorneys and collection agencies are governed by certain hours under the FDCPA regulations when they can speak to people. And a lot of the terms are usually 8 in the morning to 8 at night approximately. And they do allow for Saturday calls today, and they do allow Sunday calling. I don't think anybody works on a Sunday. Our agency doesn't work on a Sunday. We're not going to bother people on Sundays. And Saturday, usually only going to call in the morning if some agencies work on Saturdays. Okay, so know when you call. To be safe, again, after checking with your legal counsel when you can call or when you can not be considered harassing, usually I use 8 to 8 is a fair assumption when you can call somebody. So make sure you're calling in that time frame. I don't really think you want to bother somebody at 6 o'clock in the morning. They're not going to be as nice on the phone as they are maybe 10 o'clock. And know why you're calling them. Make sure, again, with modern technology today and the systems that are in place on your desktop, that you can toggle through your screens. Know why you're calling them. Are you calling them because they missed a payment arrangement? It's the first bill you're calling them on. Is it because you're calling them about a cancellation, a return check? Have all your W's in place. Who, when, and why you're calling somebody. And this way it sounds you're very professional on the phone. You don't have to scamper and you don't have to call anybody back. Okay. Now I want to talk about making effective payment arrangements and the difference between, what payments you were making now versus how, hopefully, if you try my system out, it's going to be helpful to you. And I'm going to make everybody a standing bet when this is over. So, and no one's ever called me on it. And if they do, I'm more than happy to pay on it, but I'm glad no one has because it means it works. Okay. Tell me if this sounds familiar to everybody. Either they call or you call, you get John Smith on the phone. John Smith owes you $300. And you go, John said, we have a balance of $300. And John Smith says, I can't afford it. And invariably, tell me if it sounds familiar, not always, but most people on the other end will say, how much can you afford? And John Smith will say, $10 a month. Now, sometimes it could be 20 or even 5 or 15 or whatever, but maybe 50, but I doubt it's going to be that high. They always think in lowest common denominator. Now you have a dilemma. You have a $300 bill. He was honest. Let's just assume the patient is being honest with everybody and everything he says is the truth. He can't afford the $300. That's the truth. The truth is he says, I can give you $10 a month. If you accept it, it's going to take you 30 months to collect this money. Now, we already talked about an asset, depreciation, and present value versus future value. At the end of 30 months of collecting $10, do you think you lost money on this account? And everybody should be shaking their head up and down. Yes, you did. Okay, that's assuming he sticks to it every month and you don't have to do any more work, that every single month he calls, he gives you his credit card or whatever, or a check comes in the mail like clockwork, assuming that it's going to take you 30 months. Now, I don't think you want to do that. Here's the situation and the problem that happens is if John was honest with you upfront and said, I can't afford it, here's what I can afford. And if you say that's not good enough, now you've created a confrontation. And if you said, well, I'm sorry, we can't accept $10 a month. What invariably do you think John's going to say? Take it or leave it. That's all I got. Now you've got a problem. You're butting heads. He was honest with you. You asked a question. He was honest with you, assuming he was honest. And now you're telling him that's not good enough. And invariably, I mean, you actually put yourself in that position because of the way the conversation went. So now either you have to take it or you don't have to take it. Okay, if you don't take it, he's going to say, take it or leave it. That's all I got. And the call is going to end really quickly. And this didn't go over well. So what I want you to do is you're going to change around how you say this in a little bit different scenario. Okay. And this is what I call the art negotiations. Okay. And you're going to say it a little differently. We collect money in terms of time versus affordability. Okay. And let me put this up here. say something like this. And remember, it just happens to be Thursday. So, hey, that day worked out great for us on our slides. Today being Thursday, John, how much time do you need to pay the balance of $300 in full, today being Thursday? And at that point, we have a zipper on your mouth. We want everybody to be quiet. Don't say another word. The next person who speaks loses, okay? And there's a reason for that, okay? What did you do now by saying, repeating the day of the week 2 or 3 times in that conversation? Today being Thursday, where you ask them how much time, you didn't say how much you can afford, how much time do you need to pay the balance of $300 in full, today being Thursday? Now, what do you think the first thing they're going to think about is? When do I get paid next? That's most people's reaction. And unless you're dealing with a mathematician or an engineer or Einstein, many people cannot divide faster than 3 in their head. It's just, again, another law of averages. People will take whatever you owe them, it's $418.12. They round everything off and they can divide by 3 very quickly in their head. So the person's thinking now, when do I get paid next? He might say, I get paid in 2 weeks. I get paid my commission at the end of the month. So he's thinking real fast, that $300, he's going to divide it up in 3 ways at the most. He may say, well, I can only give you 150 this month, 150 next month. He might say, well, the $300, I can do $100 a month, which at this point, you don't say anything yet. Let him commit to that, okay? Now, he's not going to say, I'm going to give you $10. Okay, now here's where my standing bet comes into everybody that's on the seminar today, the webinar, I appreciate it. And you have a standing invitation by me for a free dinner, that if you say the sentence exactly this way, today being Thursday, how much time do you need to pay the balance of $300 in full, today being Thursday, and they come back and say, I need 30 months, dinner is on me, because I haven't had a practice yet come back to me and say that. Okay, they won't say it because all you did was change their mindset from affordability to time, okay? And you created a sense of urgency by repeating the day of the week 2 times, okay? I had one practice call me up on a Monday. They called on a Monday, and the guy literally says, geez, I work, I apologize. He goes, I can't get there till Friday. The woman that called me almost fell off the chair. She says she couldn't believe how fast, and the guy came on Friday, okay? You created a sense of urgency. Not saying that everybody's going to do that. I hope they do for you, but again, you changed how they think. Remember, in affordability, there's a saying, people afford what they want when they want it. Now, I assume, I'm just going to make a general statement, that most people in their pocket right now don't have $5,000 in cash, okay? You don't. But if I was there and I was with you and I said, listen, I'm strapped for cash right now. I have a brand new 2020 Mercedes outside, and I don't want it anymore. I'm willing to let it go. It's in perfect shape. It's yours for $5,000. Assuming you like Mercedes, how fast would you come up with the money? If you like it and you want it and it's worth the deal, you'd come up pretty fast. You'd find a way to get that 5,000 real quick. Why? People afford what they want when they want it. They don't want to pay a medical bill, let's be honest, because you've already treated them. They already feel better, okay? The Mercedes, they want it and they'll come up with the money. You didn't have the money in your pocket, but you see how fast you'd come up with the money. Okay, so what I want, you can write that little saying down, and remember, don't use Thursday if you're calling on any other day of the week. You can write that down. Today being, again, whatever day of the week you're calling on, how much time do you need to pay the balance, and then repeat the balance and fall down to the penny, today being and the day you're calling on. And you can have a little saying for whoever in your staff is doing that, or when patients call up and somebody can't afford the bill, say it like that, okay? They may give you a ridiculous statement, a comment, I should say, and say, oh, I need forever. And you can always shorten and say, no, seriously, John, seriously, how much time do you need? Today being Thursday, how much time do you need? And let him answer it again. Now, what you've also done is that you've also determined what? Now, we all know that you only have 2 types of patients out there, right? And there's only 2 types. And I'm sure you're all shaking your head and you said, that's correct. We have ones that pay and ones that don't. It's the only 2 I've come up with over the years. Haven't come up with any other ones. Ones that pay and ones that don't. And for you to be successful, it's not how much money you collect, let's be honest. Because no matter what you collect, the owner of the practice, the doctor, is always going to ask you to get more. And the better you do is just going to keep wanting more and more and more, and you're never successful. But if you could separate the payers from the not payers, you had a successful phone conversation. Successful ones are easy. Some of them are hidden and they're disguised no's, and they disguise them as a yes. Okay, but they're really a no. Ones that pay is easy. I'm sorry, I forgot all about it. I don't want to go to collections. Here's my credit card. All right, they pay. I'm sending you a check in the mail right now, or I'm stopping by tomorrow on my way home. Let's just assume they stick to it, and these are the yes, they're gonna pay. Then there's the ones that say, stick it in your ear. I have no desire to pay it. I didn't like the doctor. I'm not paying it. I have no desire. I'm not paying the bill. I didn't like the doctor, and he's telling you, don't call me anymore. I'm not going to pay the bill. Now you know that's a no, and you can put it off to collections. Okay. So it's for you to determine the payers from the not payers. Okay. And that's basically what it's for. And I hope you all try that out and let me know if it works for you. I'd really be interested in knowing it. All right. Now, in order to be a good negotiator, okay, you do what we call the art of effective listening. Okay. And I always say to somebody, hearing is involuntary, listening is voluntary. And I wrote that on here, okay, as I checked it off, okay? You can't help but hear, but you have to make an effort to listen to somebody, okay? So with that in mind, and at the first question here, who has all the power, the listener or the speaker, okay? And you're gonna tell you right away, you know that the listener has all the power during the conversation, okay? You speak at about 140 words a minute, but we can listen better than 500, okay? And the reason being is listening is voluntary. You're going to hear something during the conversation that's very important. And plus you're doing one other thing. You're listening to them that nobody else is listening to. And here's what I mean by that. And you just equate it to your own personal lives and in the real world. I'm sure you've all had a customer service issue by something you bought and you had to call up customer service, or you bought it online. Something went wrong, something happened. You finally got somebody on the phone and you laid out your entire spiel, what happened and what was wrong. And you can tell by the reaction and the response by the person on the other end, they didn't listen to a word you were saying. And that infuriates you. I know it does me, okay? And you've all been there, okay? When nobody listened to you. You could tell by the way they answered you that they didn't listen to a word you said. They had one thing written in front of them to move on, and then they don't care what you said, they're just gonna, and you could say, you're not listening to me, okay? You do not want to be that person, okay? You want to listen, okay? Patients are sick, they've had a problem, they've had a loved one pass away or in dire needs. They want somebody that will listen to them and hear what they have to say. That's all they want, okay? And if you can do that, you will be much better off. And also, you're going to hear something very important if you're listening during the conversation. You're going to hear something like, well, that was the wrong insurance. I didn't have that. Yes, I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, but it's not Horizon, New Jersey. It's out of state. It's from Minnesota. My wife's company is out there. Oh, that's why it got denied. I have secondary insurance. Did anybody take that down? No, it's not on here. Well, what is it? Okay. Um, whatever the case may be. I mean, they're going to tell you something very important. That's why you need to listen. They're going to tell you a lot of stuff. Let's be honest. It really doesn't make a change in the conversation, but listen to them. People are sick. It is the medical business. They want somebody to listen to them. Okay. So it's what I call the art of effective listening. Train your people and teach them. There are actually some nice online courses and stuff you can do about the art of effective listening. And what's going to happen when you listen? Okay. You're going to hear things, like I said, that you can use. And it's here, it's called understanding the payer signals. Okay. And the payer signals are you listening to a willing payer? And a willing payer may see things like, well, if I don't pay, are you going to ruin my credit? Well, or if I don't pay, you're going to send me to collections. Are you going to sue me? What's going to happen to my credit rating? Things like that. And if you're listening to them, they're asking those questions for a reason. They're concerned. That might be a willing payer on the other line, and that's why you need to listen to them. The guy that needs a helping hand, listen to them. They might be on their heels. We talked about if somebody being on their heels financially and trying to pay somebody, they're looking for some help. So maybe they have a situation and say, listen, I only need a couple months of paying this amount, but after that I can pay it off because I'm waiting until I get my commission check, or I'm waiting until this money comes in. I can pay you, these 3 payments now. I know they're small. He wants to pay, they're asking for some help. And I know most of you are compassionate and you will help. And that's one of the things that you can do by listening to them. So the person needs help, you help them. Now, you also have what I call the staller. That's somebody that's constantly, I'll pay you when. I'll pay you as soon as. These are also what I call disguised no's. We talked about before, the payers from the not payers. Some payers are disguised. It looks like a yes, but it's really a no. I'm going to pay you as soon as. I'm going to pay you when. They have no intentions of paying. They're stalling for time, okay? And they really have no intentions of paying the bill. So again, without being an effective listener, you're not going to be able to hear that too much. And of course, the irate caller, you're going to get the person screaming on the other end. Now, I don't ever advocate taking abuse on the phone or profanity or any of that. Somebody that's not willing to talk to you on the phone, you abort the call. Okay, do not get yourself in trouble. It's not worth the headache and the 20 minutes going to take you and 3 cups of coffee to calm down. It's just not worth it. If somebody's going to be irate and start with the name calling and profanity and screaming and yelling, abort the call. They have no desire to talk to you. And again, if you're not listening enough on the phone, I've had people that I've monitored and I watched, and the person screaming on the phone, they're just sitting there listening to the whole thing. Then they go into their written spiel. And I'm like, you didn't hear them screaming at you and yelling at you? Yeah, but they said, I had to say this. Well, no, that's not right. Somebody's yelling and screaming. One, they have no desire to pay. Two, they could be very, very upset over something that happened and why they're screaming. And you might help them calm down. Okay. They may actually have paid the bill and they got a receipt in their hand and they're going nuts because nobody's listening to them. So again, this is one of the things that we talk about being an effective listener. Okay. Now I'd like to go over choosing the right agency for you. And we have various things that I'm going to be talking about. And this is something that you should go through. Okay. When you're looking at an agency, okay, and actually almost any third party, look at their approach and their strategy. Okay. Do they meet your needs? We always say that a collection agency is an extension of your billing practice and of your practice in general. If your practice is very laid back and you don't want your agency to be that aggressive, then you need to interview your agency and make sure that's their tactics. Is your agency, if you're very tough and I want my money and I want it now, is your agency aggressive enough? It may not be, okay? Are they doing the things that you want them to do? Can they skip trace? Can they, perform searches? Do they credit report? Provide legal support? Is it what you want? These are, if you look at some of these questions, should be on your notes when you're interviewing an agency, is this what you want? Are they fulfilling your strategy? And asking these important questions on there. Okay, what type of volume do you have? What kind of placements are you getting? Do you skip trace? Do you perform research? Do you do credit reporting? Provide legal? You start looking at that when you start interviewing a agency. Okay. Transparency. Is it easy to work with the agency? Okay. Is the placements easy to do? Do they have secure portals? Okay. Nowadays, we all know that you can't talk about patients, their names, their bills, and their social security numbers on unsecure lines. Now, HIPAA requires 128-bit bank encryption. Okay. Most of your agencies that provide you a portal should provide something equal to that or greater. Ours happens to be 256. We made it double. Okay, you don't need quite double, but as long as they meet the HIPAA standards, you want to have that so that they can communicate back and forth. Do they have a dedicated client services team? Okay, meaning that when your patients call up, is there somebody to talk to besides the collector? Okay, when you call up as a client, is there somebody to talk to? Okay. Are they transparent? Do you know what they're doing? Did you ask the questions? Walk me through the process. When I turn over an account to you, how you're going to handle it, and go through with it and see if it meets your expectations. Okay. Now here's one of the things that in our industry is very important. In other industries today, it may not be so, and especially with COVID out there and businesses going under, is longevity. And the reason I say that is most good agencies out there work on a contingency. They only get paid when they collect and they're successful. And it's really nice. So you can imagine all your vendors that you only had to pay them on their success, not their failures. Well, agencies are that model for you. They all work on contingency. You pay for their success, not their failures, okay? The longer an agency has been around, it shows you that they've been successful over the years, okay? Not saying that a 3-year agency isn't good, but a 50-year agency might be a little better and they have a proven track record. Okay, again, I talked about contingency. You know, how do they get paid? If you have to pay monthly fees, reporting fees, all this kind of stuff, they should be strictly on a contingency, no bills. If they don't collect that month, you should never receive a bill for them. Okay, now their specialty. Do they specialize in the healthcare? Now, the whole agency doesn't have to, as long as they have a division and the collectors that are in that division for healthcare will be assigned to your accounts. What you don't want is, you don't want somebody that's collecting for a credit card bill and the next call they make is a healthcare bill. It's totally different. For one, the healthcares are a lot longer and it's a lot different talk off from a dialing for dollars, what I call on a credit card bill, somebody who voluntarily bought shoes and clothes and didn't pay for it versus somebody had a tragic incident happen to them. I always say bad things happen to good people. Nobody goes out there and plans on having gallbladder surgery. It happens at a moment's notice. And also make sure their specialty, do they support the medical community, the HFMA, the AHAMS, the HFMA, are they active members? And if they are, then they're up on all the latest things that are going on and new laws that are out there. Okay, take a look at their operations, and I just touched on that a little bit. How long have their people been there, the collectors? How long have they been in that industry? The senior management, the C-suite people, we call them, director of operations, director of sales. Besides longevity, how much longevity do they have in the healthcare arena? Okay, if you are a healthcare practice, you want to know all that. Okay, you want to know then because they've been staying on top of all the latest laws and new things that are out there. Okay, somebody could be 20 years in operations but never handled healthcare a day in their life. Not so sure that agency is going to be for you. Okay, some of the things you need. Now, they may not have everything that I'm going to put on here, but usually I always say, you want at least 3 to 4 out of or maybe 5 out of the 7 that we're going to put up here. And lastly, technology. You know, is everything easy? Are they electronic? Do they make everything simple? Do they have reports for you that you can download yourself? Do you have to call up and ask for your reports and somebody's got to run it and send it to you? Can you do your own online? You know, can you look at your accounts online and see the stage that you're in? You know, and is that important to you? If it's not, then that's okay. But if it's important to you, we like to say, take these 7 things and see how much of it, when you're viewing your agencies, can provide to you. And lastly, I want to bring up is that feel free to go to our website and you can download our ebook. This outlines this all again, choosing the right agency. It's a free download from our ebook, so feel free to do that. Okay, and we have some other things you can sign up, our newsletter and everything else, so I appreciate it. And lastly, please give yourselves, if we were live, give yourselves a round of applause, but you can do it anyway, even though it's on a webinar. I want to thank you. I want to thank Gina. And at this time here, I think I'll turn it over to questions and answers that Gina might have for me.
Yes, thank you so much, Andrew. And I just want to say that I really hope that this presentation gave everyone a very good idea, especially those on either listening to this live or on the replay recording, of why I felt that the way you handle things and your company handles things has such a synergy with the way Campanella Law Office handles things. You know, a good portion of your presentation was how can you solve these problems, but if you can't, we're here for you. So and I really like that, and I do appreciate that. We actually do not have any questions and answers coming in. I think that's truly a testament to the thoroughness of your presentation.
Okay.
But I ask you, what has been the top question you have been getting from either current clients or new clients about how to approach collections differently or the same way in this new COVID environment where a lot of people are having financial problems who may not have had them before?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Gina. And we've had many questions come up from our clients and prospects. We've been inundated with calls people fearing that their company is going to be in a collection crisis down the road, let's say by the end of the year, when this is all said and done, because we don't know who's going to back to work and what businesses are closed completely and how fast they can get a job. And it's real important that when I touched on it, that you want to really, one, you need to be a listener. And the listening part of it, of the people's problems and what they're having, is one, listen to their problem and how you can help them solve it. And I call it the rule of three. When somebody can't pay their bill, they're a little embarrassed to say the reason. So I always say you have to do a little digging, but do it nicely. And I'll give you, for instance, person says, I'm calling up to find out the reason why the bill is unpaid. And the person says, well, I didn't like the doctor. Okay, that's fine. I understand that. Not everybody likes the doctor. You're entitled to your opinion. Is there any other reason why you didn't pay the bill? Yeah, I had to go get a second opinion. You know what? If I was in your shoes, I'd probably get a second opinion too. Besides those two, is there any other reason you can think of why the bill went unpaid? Well, John's out of work or Mary's out of work. Then that's the real reason. They wouldn't say it right up front. And if you took it for face value, that's the only answer in the first one. It's called the rule of three. They usually wind up saying, okay, now Mary's out of work, John's out of work. You can work with that. Now you can work with them and say, okay, are they have a job? Are they making close to what they made? Or when will they be starting? When can we put you on a program? Now you're listening to them. As we said, the art of listening, you're listening to them. You heard what they had to say, and now you're offering to help them. And that is, and also, and I tell our clients is that when somebody can't pay the bill, when you ask them how much they can afford today with COVID going on and nobody's working and having problems, they're going to tell you, I can't afford anything. They're going to say $5 a month, $10 a month. Don't put yourself in that position. Always use, when I wrote it down, we had that slide on negotiating payments. Ask for money in terms of time versus affordability. You will always win. You'll never back yourself into a corner, and you will see a difference. Because if you look at it like for a $300 balance, most practices have always told me, management philosophy says, we don't want to go more than 6 months out. We'll go 6 months and it's $50 a month. But if you offer that up front, okay, versus asking the patient to put himself on his own payment arrangement, and he says, I can't do it, I need 3 months, you saved half the amount of time by letting the patient put him on himself. And one other thing, if you put the patient on a payment arrangement, he may pay the first one or second one, and he's going to stop paying. And then when you ask him what happened, and he said, I told you I couldn't afford it, but you told me I had to pay, but I can't afford it. When the patient puts themselves on their own payment arrangement that says, I need 2 months or I need 3 months to pay this, they're less likely, I'm not saying it's 100%, they're less likely to break the promise. So in this COVID environment, listen, besides hearing, listen to your patients, jot down anything important that they say, try to solve their problems. And again, ask for money in terms of time versus affordability. And that's basically been a lot of our success and why we've been successful even through this COVID experience. I hope
Now,
I answered your question.
yes, thank you so much. And I actually do have a question that popped up from one of our attendees.
Great.
And this attendee says, I have contacted various collection companies in the past, and they have really not given me attention because I was what they considered, and this is in quotes, a small account, because I do not send all of my patients to collections. How does your company deal with the small account?
Okay, so that was when choosing an agency, and that did come up, whether, are you too small for a company that's too big, and are you going to get lost in a shuffle? And I hear her pain, or do you want a smaller agency that can work from you? So if you're a big practice, you're probably too big for a small agency that they can't handle your volume. If you're a small practice, you're not good for a big agency, you'll get lost in a shuffle. You're trying to find one that, so some of the questions you want to ask is you want to ask them, what's your typical volume like now? And you know what yours is. You don't have to divulge it right away and say, the person says, well, like if you know you're going to turn over 20 accounts a month to them, and ask them, one, if they can handle that. Two, is that, are they too big? When you get some of their clients and references that they should provide to you, are they dealing with, if they're dealing with hospitals and you're a small one doctor medical practice, I can honestly say that the agency probably will be too big. And in all honesty, that they're just inundated with hospital business that gives them thousands of accounts. It's not the right agency for you. So I would shop around for a smaller one. And sometimes the smaller agencies are hungry. You know, they are more hungry. They'll put more effort into your portfolio, is to review that process, go through that, choosing the right agency, ask all the right questions and find out if they're going to be right for you. And again, every agency is different. I mean, some agencies, you know, you really shouldn't say somebody is too small, okay? Because if it's done right and you ask the questions how the accounts are handled, if the accounts are handled and spread out through all the healthcare collectors and everybody's got a shot at collecting the money, the collector doesn't know how big the client is, they just see the patient's name. So if you ask the question operationally how you're going to handle the account, whether the patient, the practice is big or small, may not have a difference. And just take, for example, just our agency, the way we handle collections is I can take a client that's going to send me 3 accounts a month and one that's sending me 3,000. It doesn't matter because the way we distribute the accounts in our office, the collectors are getting a set number of accounts and who to work, which is rotated. So they're not going to not call it because it's a small account. They have no idea how big the client is. So it's just doing your due diligence and making sure that an agency and ask the operational questions of how they're going to handle your accounts. I hope I answered that.
Thank you so much. And I think that's it for our questions. So did you have anything final you just wanted to say or add to the presentation?
No, Gina, I want to thank you again and your audience. Thank you for having us on. I look forward to doing more with you in the future on other topics that we can do. You know, it's been a great relationship, you and I would like to continue it. And thank you to your audience once again for spending an hour with me.
Absolutely, and thank you everyone as well from me and from Campanella Law Office. I hope this gave you a good idea and a good insight into working with Andrew and Simon's agency, and I do intend to bring the second more advanced webinar to you later this summer, so please be on the lookout for that. And if any of my business clients, healthcare or non-healthcare related, have any more questions for either me or Andrew, please feel free to contact Andrew directly, contact me, I'll get you in touch with him, and we can answer all of your questions. I hope you all have a wonderful day and look forward to seeing you at the next webinar.
Thank you.